Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, energetic leadership guide, psychic medium, and somatic coach for ambitious leaders who know their gifts are real and who want to stand fully in them. Here, you'll learn how to trust your intuition, embody your vision, and step into the freedom you've been craving, all without chasing more certifications or carrying stuff that does not belong to you. Every week, I'll share powerful practices and conversations with thought leaders and changemakers that help you transform your vision into embodied confidence, claim your gifts without apology, and lead with both clarity and freedom. Because your gifts aren't cute, they're powerful, they're real, and they're needed. Start today by downloading my free energy audit at brendawinkle.com/audit. It's the exact tool I use to track what's fueling me and what's draining me. It will help you discern between that hit of achievement and true joy so that you can lead with more clarity and impact. This is your space to stop proving, start embodying, and live fully in your gifts. Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here today. You are part of the reason that this podcast is ranked in the top 5% globally of all podcasts. So I appreciate you being here more than you know. And I have a request. If you could please stop right now, go leave the podcast your rating and review. If you were a returning listener, it would mean so much to the podcast and it would help us to get into the ears of more listeners. And if you're brand new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. At the end of the episode, if it was helpful for you or meant something to you, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast your rating and review. Today, we're going to be talking about the identity shift that no one talks about. And that's what happens when you stop living for other people's approval. This is big because for us as empaths, if we've had our signal always going out externally, like a spotlight pointing to other people, we've been reading rooms, we've been taking temperatures of different situations, we've been making sure that everybody around us is okay. And when you make the shift from that externalization of you being okay if everyone around you is okay to knowing how to self-regulate, knowing how to make sure you're okay first, it's a massive identity shift. There was a time when safety to me felt like making sure everyone around me was also regulated, calm, happy, content. And that translated over time into factoring everybody else's opinions and perspectives into every decision. Now, it's interesting because I didn't lack confidence. I didn't lack clarity. What I needed was regulation. I didn't have the capacity to sit in any discomfort around someone not agreeing with or approving of my decisions. I literally didn't have the nervous system capacity because in my body, if they didn't approve of what I had decided, it felt like lack of safety. Because in early life, and this is true for so many empaths, in early life, if someone had a sense of disapproval or not liking something, oftentimes it meant that I couldn't fully relax. I needed them to be okay so I could be more okay. And this is kind of the dark side of being an empath because there is something self-serving about making sure everybody's okay. Yes, we're making sure that everybody's okay and there's such a generosity of spirit, but it's not completely for other people. It's a lot for us so that we can finally feel better, so that we can finally relax. And at the time, I knew that I was expending tremendous energy on the process of making sure that everybody approved of my decision before I made it. So much so that it felt a little like I was making decisions by committee. It took a long time for me to decide, not because I was actually indecisive or because I needed time to decide, but because I needed time to talk to everybody who might have some type of opinion about my decision. It was kind of exhausting, if I'm honest. And it was frustrating too, because sometimes I would engage or enter into a conversation with the idea that I would convince them that what I wanted to do or the decision I had made is the right thing. Well, what that did is create conflict if they didn't agree. So let's say I went in to say, I'm going to move to a specific city or take a specific job. And the people I was talking to were like, well, no, don't do that. Now I've got another problem on my hands because I have made somebody else think that they actually have a say over a decision they do not have a say about. And then we've got a whole nother thing that needs to happen. So in my body, what used to happen is, let's say, I'm going to tell you about a time when I was moving to Kansas City. I had quit my job in South Dakota. I was married at the time, and the person that I was married to quit his job in South Dakota. And we put everything into a U-Haul and we drove to Kansas City to live. We didn't yet have a place to live secured, and neither of us had jobs. We knew that that was the move we were going to make. And when I was talking to people about this, I posed it as though it was a question. What do you think about us doing this? Well, when the answer came back, not surprisingly, that is a terrible idea. You should never do that. Then it looks like I'm being disrespectful because I've asked somebody for their opinion and now I'm doing something directly opposite. So in my body, it felt like heat. If I felt defensive, I felt frustrated, I felt angry because I'm like, why can't you get on board with this? Not having any awareness that I had just asked them, what do you think I should do? Not being transparent about the fact I've already decided what I'm doing, but I was so accustomed to making sure that everybody was on board with all of my decisions that I did it for that decision too. Now, everything worked out beautifully. We both quickly got jobs. We got a new house. That was where my daughter was born. And so everything worked out. We really got to spend some beautiful time with my aunt and uncle there. And it was some of the most memorable times in my life as far as my aunt and uncle go. In fact, if you've ever watched on the YouTube videos, the picture behind me is my aunt and uncle that we got really close to while living in Kansas City after we put everything into a U-Haul and moved with no jobs. So, what I didn't realize was happening is I was making everybody else's opinions, experiences, and advice more important than my own. And I was giving away my own power. Even if I wasn't intentionally giving away my power, that's exactly what I was because that's exactly what I was doing because I was asking them, what do you think I should do? As though their opinion, their perspective was going to be responsible for my life choices. So, number one, that wasn't very kind of me to do, but I didn't realize that at the time. And number two, it puts a weird crimp into situations if the people that you're talking to don't want you to do what you really want to do. And that's kind of the moment that we're going to be talking about today. It's when that identity shift happens where you are no longer willing to make your important life decisions about anything by committee. Now, of course, if you're involved in a relationship with a romantic partner, a spouse, or you're making decisions that are impacting the lives of your children, of course, you're going to discuss those decisions with the people that are impacted by them. I'm not suggesting that you not factor people whose lives will be affected by your decisions into those decisions. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is if you don't come in with a solid knowing of what is best for you and what your preferences are, you've given your power away before the conversation even begins. So I know that you know what it's like to spend years learning how to read a room. You know how to discern if someone is happy, angry, sad. You know what to say or do to shift that emotion so that they're more comfortable, so you can be more comfortable. But somewhere along the way, you probably forgot how to read yourself. You probably have become so fluent in meeting other people's needs that your own needs and your own voice has begun to sound unfamiliar. And if you're like a lot of empaths, you probably feel a twinge of guilt when you start the journey to make your voice matter again. And because you have very likely trained everyone in your life that your voice may not have the weight that you want it to, now we've got to re educate everyone in your life. And that's part of the reason why it's a massive identity shift when you no longer are seeking external approval for your decisions and for your life. So many empaths became adaptable and helpful, accommodating, and perhaps even low maintenance in a certain way because there were rewards for that behavior. It came with approval, it came with a sense of belonging or connection. It was probably rewarded with praise. But what happens when becoming easy for other people to tolerate, to be around, becomes your identity? Well, that means that when you begin to grow and you begin to step into your own power and use your own voice, it can feel like your own growth is threatening belonging. And I just want to name that and normalize it because that is how it feels. That's how it felt for me when I stopped making decisions based on the external validation and approval of others. And that's what I take my clients through, both in terms of power, self trust for empaths, which is my group program. Enrollment is open now for power for the summer cohort. And I also see this in a lot of the work I do with my private clients because many of my clients are parents, they're professionals, they might lead teams or run teams, and there are dynamics at play with a lot of other people. And the fear is not that you're going to make the wrong decision. That's really not the fear. We tell ourselves that's what the fear is, but that's not it. The fear is that someone isn't going to like the right decision for you. So I recently spoke with a client of mine, and she knows exactly what she wants. It is very clear to her what she wants her next phase of life to be like. She's not confused. She has been waiting for a while for certain things to fall into place, waiting for certain life events to happen, waiting for certain milestones to be met, waiting for people to be okay. And she's kind of waiting for permission. But the truth is, and this is going to feel really challenging, that permission is not going to come from external sources. Because if there are people who have been benefiting by you not giving yourself permission to live the life that you want, it's going to be difficult for them to get on board and give you the permission. And if you have any wobble about making the decision, the people that love you, even if they really support you, they will track the wobble and they'll talk you out of doing what you want to do. And look, even people who support us and love us will sometimes talk us out of doing the things that we know we need to do. I'll give you an example from last week. I have made myself a promise that I would post every day on social media. I've talked about this before, and it's part of how I'm growing my platform. It's part of how I'm growing my brand. It's part of how I grow my business and attract new clients. And so I made myself a promise that I would post every day on social media at least twice. I have kept this promise for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I have posted weekly for 150 weeks on Instagram. 150 weeks. Now, I have only recently, like in the last year, decided I was going to post daily. And then more recently, like the last 4 months, post twice daily. And it's making a big difference in things moving along in my business. But when I was at my family's last week, my mom said, "You know what? You're tired. Why don't you give yourself some days off? Just don't post." Wouldn't it have been easy for me to say, "Yeah, I think I will go ahead and break the promise that I made to myself about posting daily. I think I will go ahead and just let go of the algorithm that I've built over the past 152 weeks and just take some time off, even though that's not what I want to do. And that's not what's best for me. And it's not what's best for my business. And it's not what I promised myself." It was very tempting. Now, my mom doesn't mean anything by it other than loving support. She saw that I was trying to post while she was while she was talking to me. By the way, I had said, I'm going to create my social media posts. I'm not going to talk for about 15 or 20 minutes because I had them drafted, ready to go. It was just a matter of literally posting them and copying and pasting my captions and different things like that. And still, that was hard for her to sit through. Even though she had other things she could be doing, it was hard. And it was very tempting for me. And I felt the pull because, again, I'm an empath. So I know this journey intimately because I've been on it. And I felt her being like, "I really just want you to sit with me for 15 more minutes and not post." But that's not going to solve anything for any of us because if I break a promise to myself, then I feel a way about myself. Now, this, by the way, this conversation is not about posting on social media. I don't give two hoots. If you're on social media, if you use social media, if you see my posts, if you make your own posts, that's not what this is about. This is about someone trying to talk me out of a promise that I made to myself. And it's coming from what could be argued is a really good place. And this is happening for you too. But this is really, really expensive because if you stop asking, "What do I want?" and "What's best for me?" and you start asking questions like, "What will create the least amount of disruption?" you have just self abandoned. And you know it in every fiber of your being. And every time that you agree to keep on keeping on something that is not aligned, that does not feel good, that it's energetically expensive, that's emotionally expensive, and you just keep going forward because it will create the least amount of disruption, that is a moment where you are not honoring yourself. You are making other people's experiences matter more than your own. And because you're an empath, this is a natural state of being to you. And if you're not intentionally honoring your own needs, it's really easy to lose your way. So, this can happen in our relationships. Like, for example, my mom wanted to talk me out of creating posts that were going to take me 15 minutes because I'd done the content creation before I arrived there, but I needed to post that day. This can happen in romantic partnerships. This can even happen with your kids. So, my daughter is 24. She's been out on her own for a long time. She's a fully functioning adult making big moves in the world. And there are still times when I have to really self monitor to make sure that I'm not making her experience matter more than my own. Because as parents, when we have minor children and we have babes in arms and little toddlers, it's not optional to make their experiences matter more than your own. It has to be that way because that's how we can make sure that they're fed and they're cared for and their needs are met. And so sometimes we learn to give up sleep. We learn to eat the cold dinner. We learn to drink the lukewarm coffee because that's what's required of us when we have very small children. But the problem gets to be a bigger problem when we don't come back into prioritizing our own needs as the people who were caregiving, as their needs shift and change and evolve. This can also happen in terms of visibility. Now, when I say visibility, a lot of people assume I'm talking about social media. That's one aspect of visibility, but that's not the one I'm talking about here. I'm talking about your ability to show who you really are across relationships, across your social groups, where let's say your book club knows how you feel about certain topics the same way the people from your neighborhood know how you feel about certain topics, the same way your friend group knows. If you're not being visible and transparent in that way, where you across all the different relationships in your life, that's a visibility problem. When you don't want people to know different parts of you, or you don't want people to know what you believe, or how brilliant you are, or the beautiful way you have of wording things, that's a visibility problem. That's an example of making other people's experiences matter more than your own. And it comes up for leadership too. I was having a conversation with my cousin, who I was recently able to spend some time with when I was traveling for my niece's graduation. I have the best cousins, and I really enjoy getting to see them often because so many of my cousins live in the Midwest, and because so much of my family is based in the Midwest, that even if they don't live in the place that I am, often we travel to try to see each other. And so I was visiting with a cousin, and my cousin he's in leadership in the arts world. And he was making a conversation about something that had happened in one of the organizations that he runs. And there was a professional artist who my cousin is very close with. They've been friends for 30 years. And something happened in the professional arts organization, and the friend of 30 years was not performing at level. And my cousin had a choice to honor his role inside the organization in leadership and honor what he was being asked to do by other people in prominent leadership and fire his friend, or to honor his friend. Now, my cousin is not an empath. He is empathic. He is very kind, but he's not an empath. But it still was very challenging for him. And as an empath, this comes up for you a lot when you're stepping into leadership, when you're hiring people, when you're working with people, even people that come into your house. I see this come up for the empaths that I work with. Like, let's say you hire a new housekeeper and the housekeeper is doing something that you want them to do a little bit differently. A lot of times I'll hear people say, well, I don't want them to feel bad, so I'm not going to say, well, that is not being a leader. That's not strong. That's not kind. This also comes up in marital relationships when someone is unhappy with what has been happening in the bedroom and they're unwilling to say to their partner, I'm not happy with what's happening in the bedroom. I'm going to shoot it to you straight. That's not kindness to not say that, because decades can go by. One person thinks it's fine and the other person is completely uncontent, discontent by what's happening in the bedroom. And there's no middle ground. There's no awareness. That's not kind. We have to make our experiences matter, because the truth is, everybody else in our life is making their experience matter first. And if you take care of yourself first, it's not going to make you more selfish, I promise. But it will make your life smaller if you don't do it. And the thing is, it doesn't happen overnight that your life becomes smaller. Little by little by little, you become the concierge for everyone else in your life. You become the considerate one, the responsible one, making sure everyone has a good experience, making sure everyone is happy. You're the concierge, and yet your needs are not being met. And you're living your life like that, wondering why you're feeling resentful, depleted, sad. The, of course, you're feeling resentful, depleted, and sad if you're the concierge of your life and no one is ever coming forward to meet your own needs because they probably don't know you have them. And if they do know that you have them and they're not being met, that is a different conversation. So, this is where self trust begins to get rebuilt. You ready? It's in the pause, meaning pause, give yourself a moment before you respond, before you agree, before you ask for someone's opinion, before you react, before you either set or meet someone's expectation. You pause. In the pause, your conditioning is going to become more visible. You'll be like, oh, I'm doing that. Your fear becomes more visible, which is probably why you haven't been pausing, honestly. And your people pleasing becomes more visible. And the good news is, when all that becomes visible, then choice becomes so much more possible. So, my client Jill did not rearrange her entire life. She did allow people to be disappointed in one of her choices. And not only did she survive, but the relationships are now stronger. The transformation wasn't in her ability to set a boundary. The transformation was in her truly believing and embodying that her experience matters enough to be able to have the conversation. It is incredibly rewarding to watch what's happening in her life since she joined Power. Many empaths think that self trust is about confidence. And yeah, there's probably an element where that's true, but self trust doesn't often look like confidence. It looks like not picking up what doesn't belong to you. And one of the things that my client Stephanie, who was in the first cohort of Power, said is that it used to be that when other people were stressed, that meant action for her. And she's not being responsible for other people's stress anymore. And she's monitoring and managing her own. And everybody is okay. In fact, there's peace in the household. She feels great about it. So the goal isn't to become harder or more boundaried or colder or selfish. None of those things is the goal. And by the way, you're an empath. That's probably not going to happen for you because you're wired to be warm and loving. But the goal is to be someone who can include themselves in the equation instead of being easy or flexible or agreeable or available. You can become honest and discerning and self trusting and emotionally mature. Maybe the next version of you isn't actually waiting for permission. Maybe that next version of you is waiting for you to honor what's here now, honor present you. That's the identity gap that a lot of us empaths get stuck in. And the moment that you stop asking everyone else what they think and you start being willing to trust what you've known all along, that is the moment that true freedom begins to feel not only possible, but present and here. If you've been listening and thinking, this is me, or, oh, I know this, or maybe it's more like, I've known this for a while, then I want to invite you into something special. It's a free masterclass called Trust Yourself Again, Why You Already Know More Than You Trust. We're going to explore why self trust becomes harder under stress, why empaths override themselves, how to hear your own signal more clearly, and how to trust what you know without becoming less caring. Because you probably don't need more information. You just need support in trusting yourself more fully. So, I'm going to teach you my power framework in the free masterclass. The identity shift that nobody talks about isn't confidence, it's not even boundaries, it's not communication. It's the moment when you stop organizing your life around everyone else's comfort and you start making your experience matter too. And you can do this in a way that is loving, connective, and actually supports relationships. It doesn't mean you're going to blow up every relationship in your life if you start putting yourself on your own list. Will there be some relationships that change? Yes, 100%. Will it take you practice? Yes, also 100%. That's a big part of the reason why Power includes 3 cohorts with your registration. It's a year's worth of support because it does take practice. And when we're talking about identity shifts, it takes time for you to step in to the identity and close the gap of the person you used to be to the person that you are becoming. I invite you, whether you're coming to the masterclass or not, whether you're joining Power or not, to begin to pause before you agree to things, before you ask for opinions. Check in with yourself first. Your life is going to be so much richer, and your generosity will be truly generous when you start to check in with yourself first. And that is also how you can close that identity gap. Thank you for listening today. If this has meant something to you, if it's been helpful for you, would you please consider sharing this with 3 people that you care about? And I hope to see you in the free masterclass. You can register at brendawinkle.com/next level. And if you want to learn about power, if you think that might be for you, go to brendawinkle.com/power. I'll see you next episode. And if you haven't yet subscribed wherever you're listening, subscribe now so you don't miss a thing, because in the coming weeks, I have some incredible interviews to share with you. Interviews with clients, interviews with experts, and an interview with Judith Orloff, who is the godmother of the empath movement. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. Until next time.